I have a lot of things on my mind. One of the things that I've been thinking about is the conversation that has been happening on Kenyan social media, which is about grooming. I think it came out that one of the teachers on one of the best schools in Kenya had been molesting girls. And this has brought up a lot of conversations. A lot of people are sharing their own stories. And of course, when it comes to cases like this, something that is always notable is victim blaming. It's not funny, but I just find it so funny how people are always resorting to victim blaming. When it comes to these cases of grooming, it seems like a lot of people are in so much denial. People are in denial because, one, they do not want to accept that a lot of children are actually not safe in schools. And that is something that brings a lot of fear, especially to a lot of parents, especially the ones who have taken their children to boarding schools. But I find it so interesting because why don't you want to believe it, but these are things that happen in the home. Children are constantly being abused in the homes, and it's family members who will protect the abusers. But somehow they do not want to understand how these same abusers that are being protected in the home could transfer their abuse to the workplaces. Because yes, as much as now people are talking about just school, something like grooming doesn't just happen to children, it even happens to adults. Other adults can groom other adults, especially in the workplaces. The other thing about grooming is that you don't know when you're being groomed. You only know maybe even a few years after the fact that it has happened. That is what makes it so dangerous. And one of the key things that has come up in this discussion that actually I'm seeing a lot of people are not able to comprehend is the fact that the people that groom young girls and young boys, most of the times they are the most respected people in society. They could be that teacher that has a close relationship with parents, that is always helping parents, that is always reporting to the parents about the child well-being, and the parent is like, wow, there's this teacher that I can always trust to take care of my child. It's those kinds of people. When you look at it from the religious context, it's the church leaders and the pastors who always seem to care so much. They might even decide to pay school fees for your children. Unfortunately, a lot of predators are people who are the most respected in society, and they have a strong knit community. And this is why they are able to get away with the abuse that they do, because the people around them will always try and protect them. It's always the person that you never think of. And when you look at how grooming happens, it's not like, oh, someone comes and abuses you from the start. No, they build a friendship, they build an emotional connection, they build trust. They'll start with being your friend first. And once they know that they have your trust, they slowly start isolating you from your friends, from your family. They start brainwashing you to think that they're the only person that cares about you in your life. This is exactly where this rhetoric of, oh, women expire after 30 comes from. The older you get as a woman, you become hard to manipulate. And that's why a lot of them are always going for the younger girls, because the younger girls are easy to manipulate. Younger girls don't even know themselves. They don't even know how to identify people who are good for them. And most times, especially those from abusive families, they're looking for connection, they're looking for attachment, they feel like they are affection depraved, and when they find someone that looks like they care for them, it's easy for them to fall into that trap. I've always found it so interesting, this trope of a secretary that is having a relationship with their boss, and people are always like, oh, because she seduced him. Most of the times you're overlooking the fact that this secretary is spending a lot of time with their boss, and they're also trying so hard to not lose their job. There's a power aspect here. And when you mix power with fear of losing a job, and also the fact that you're spending a lot of time, it's very easy to get groomed. That is how this thing starts. And the fact that as a society, each and every time such conversations come up, it's always resorting to victim blaming, because of course majority of the victims are women. It's really concerning. It's almost as if being a predator is something that is expected of a lot of men, and being a victim is something that is expected of a lot of women. And so when people speak up, it's like, oh, why are you destroying society? This is exactly why I don't believe in this idea of community, because community has always been an enabler of abuse. Community is the reason why we have so many predators going around now, because these communities not only protected them but allowed them to procreate and create more abusers. Community has always thrived because of the silence of women. That's why for me, I'd rather live in a hyper individualistic society than in communities where women are constantly being treated as less than. And actually not just that, communities where the bodies of women are constantly a battlefield and people just want you to keep quiet because, oh my god, what's gonna happen to a community. And if we come back to this issue of victim blaming, I find it so interesting. When young girls are talking about how they were groomed, suddenly it's their fault for seducing these adults. First of all, I don't understand. If someone seduces you, does it mean that you go ahead and abuse them? Like, are you a fool or what? Who is forcing you? So many people want to blame the victims in this instance. But when your government is using police brutality against you, suddenly you understand that the problem here is the government, because it's the one that has the power. How does that make any sense? Because if you're going to be blaming victims of grooming, you should be blaming the victims of police brutality. It doesn't make sense that you suddenly understand the government has the power and should not be using violence, but you don't understand that adults should not be grooming children because they're the ones that have the power. This is why I really don't take a lot of people seriously when they talk about bad leadership, but you're doing the exact things your leaders do when they have political power, but you're doing it in your day-to-day life. But you do not want to be held accountable for that, but you want your bad leaders to be held accountable. How does that work? How does that work? The book I'm reading right now is called Challenging Patriarchy. And one of the chapters talks about how the women of Eritrea fought for independence of Eritrea, and how after all that independence, they're expected to just go back to the kitchen to shut their mouths. And yet they also participated in liberating the country. This really reinforced something that I've been speaking about. I even made a couple of Instagram stories about this. And this is the intersection of this idea of political liberation for the people and women's rights. Because what I'm finding and what I'm seeing over and over is the fact that a lot of people expect everyone, including women, to speak up when the country is on fire. Oh, we need to protest. Bad leadership, we need to fight for our country. But the moment the country is fine and things are going on well, suddenly people want to erase women from the public sphere. They want you to go back to the kitchen. They want you to keep quiet. They do not want to hear you. They want you to be seen and not heard. And this is something that has really made me think about how I approach activism. I've said before that I'm retiring from activism. I really don't know how feasible that is, because I'm an outspoken person, I'm a thinker. This is why I make these videos, and this in a way is actually a form of activism. What has really been on my mind is, what's the point of me fighting to have a good country if at the end of the day I'm still not being seen as a human being? I don't understand how people will want your feminist voice to bring down bad leadership and fix the country. But the moment you're using your feminist voice to highlight the issues that affect women, like femicide, suddenly you're too much. You're breaking down traditional family values. You're breaking feminists. How does that work? I'm getting to a point where I just don't see the meaning, really, of fighting for a good country when at the end of the day the same country doesn't care for women's lives. The same country doesn't care about me and my humanity. So why should I care about the country burning? And of course, I know I shouldn't be thinking like this, because I'm also the kind of person that believes that everyone needs an equal and fair society. That's why I'll keep making these videos. I'll keep sharing what's on my mind, because I'm a thinker, because I think a lot and I have a lot of creative solutions to the problems that we have. Problem is, people don't want to listen. People do not want to implement the solutions in their own lives. They're waiting for a messiah to come from somewhere, but that's not going to happen. You want change, it starts with you. You want the bad leaders to go away. You also have to start with holding accountable the people around you that are abusing young girls and young boys. There's just no way around that. It starts with us looking at our cultures and traditions. And unless we all get to that point, unfortunately, that change that you're thinking about is not going to come. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. This society doesn't make itself. We make society. And if you're the kind of person that is constantly judging other people because of the choices that they make in their lives, you're also part of the problem. If you're the kind of person that wants to control how other people are living their lives, you're also part of the problem. If you're the kind of person that feels like you deserve to have everything good in your life at the expense of other people, you're also part of the problem. These are some of the most amazing clouds you will see. This is fantastic. You know, you had a power workout when you're literally sweating an hour later and your legs are shaking. Every single time it's workout time, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't work out today. I'm always trying to come up with all these excuses, but I'm just so proud of myself because I've become the kind of person that even when I don't want to do something, I do it because I know I have to do it. And I remember I started this habit with my content creation, and then it just spilled into different parts of my life. Now I work out consistently, even when I do not want to, and to be honest, I'm not getting the results that I want. But that is also a great reminder that just because you're working out doesn't mean that you're going to get the results that you want quickly, because it takes time. There's a reason why people always go for surgery, for Ozempic, because working out is not going to give you instant results. It takes time, sometimes even years, and you just need to keep going at it. I mean, that's just a lesson in everything in life. If you want to be successful in something, you have to keep going, you have to be consistent. That is actually the hard part. So I've actually been rewatching Money Heist, and I've just been astonished by the new lens that I have towards this show now. I remember when I watched it before, how I was rooting for the robbers, the masterminds of the heist. I was like, yeah, girl, la resistencia. But now I have a different point of view. I really don't think that they were the heroes that I thought they were then, because at the end of the day, they're not doing something right. They're hurting other people. I mean, the hostages, the psychological trauma that the hostages will have to live with for the rest of their lives. And this really made me think about the relationship that a lot of people have with politicians. This show could be a metaphor. You have these thieves who are coming in and they're stealing all this money and the gold, and then they're pretending that, oh, we're going against this institution that are oppressing everyone, but they're also doing the same thing. Only that because of their storytelling, they look like they're doing something different. And it's the same thing that politicians do. They come to you, they pick something that has been bugging you for a very long time, like unemployment, and then they pretend that they are against this government. This government has caused unemployment. Put me in and I'm going to solve the issue of unemployment. And then they get in doing the same things that keep these oppressive systems alive. And because now I've gotten to a point where I've learned a lot, I've done a lot of deconstruction, studied about the patterns of patriarchy, capitalism, all these things, and how they interconnect with politics, with everyday life. I'm also realizing this show just has a lot of casual misogyny. And really, maybe that's the point, because at the end of the day, these shows are a representation of our societies. We've always been taught that art is the mirror of society. I completely get the people who are always been like, it's just a show, don't think too much about it. Of course, it's easier to not think about it, because when you really start looking at shows, series, through a critical lens and looking at the society that we have, then it's not a pretty sight, is it? This is definitely reminding me of how people are always saying, oh, these institutions are bad, we need to get rid of these bad leaders. But if you're put in that situation, do you think you're going to do any better? These robbers and Money Heist, they are not doing any better. They want to subjugate their hostages, they want them to listen to them, they want them to do whatever they want. I mean, it's not a democracy. What's the difference between that and what these oppressive systems are doing? That's why I deeply believe that constantly talking about how we need to change, we need awareness, that is actually not doing anything. Just look at the past 10 years. A lot of people have been talking on social media about, oh, we need to change this and this, but very little gets changed. And most times you will see that there's change in the laws, but the culture doesn't change. I mean, taking the example of a lot of women now do have economic opportunities because the law asks for that. But when you look at the wider society, women are still expected to not go to work. Women are still being shamed for choosing their careers. So yeah, right now, yes, as women, we can go to school, you can get a job if you want, but you're also always being side-eyed because you chose a career. What? You need to be a mother, because the only thing you should be doing as a woman is to be a mother, have children, and stay at home and cook for your husband. So at the end of the day, yes, we have legal changes, but the wider society society still doesn't change, because change comes from culture, comes from our everyday beliefs, thoughts, tradition. And so talking about these things on social media really doesn't help that much, because at the end of the day, it comes down to everyday people. It comes down to the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And that is much harder, because a lot of people do not want to change their lives. They're waiting for a certain messiah that is going to come and save them, because change is scary. I'm sure that you need to change the culture and tradition that you've believed in, that your ancestors have believed in, for you to see real change in the wider society. That is scary. Starting to look at the religion that you've followed for years, that is scary. That's why it's really much harder to create a society that is good for everyone, because that means that everybody needs to be looking into themselves and make the changes from within. And getting to that, that's the hardest thing. That's really the hardest thing. And that's why you always see that people say, choose the lesser devil, because that's easier. It's my evening walk time, and the air smells like wet soil, and that smell of wet soil is just absolutely fantastic. One of the things I like about my evening walk is the fact that I just see a lot of birds. Look at that right there. If I get closer, it'll definitely disappear, fly away. Ugh, why? They think that I'm a predator, but I just want to appreciate the beauty. Those two right there, I do not want to disturb them, but they're on the path in which I'm going. Let's see, how long is it gonna take them before they disappear? Da-dun, da-dun. I just had a small talk while I was coming down near the river for my walk, and I just realized how great I am at small talk, despite the fact that I'm an introvert. I think it has to do with the fact that I have 2 degrees in communication, and I know how to manage and carry a conversation even when I do not want to talk with the person, and I know exactly what kind of conversations to have, you know, the superficial ones. And I'm just so great at it. Something that just makes my day, because it just reminds me I'm phenomenal, absolutely fantastic. It's getting darker and darker. I don't even know whether can you see me properly? And clearly you can. It's not that dark yet. Today I actually just go back to studying Chinese, because I had this kind of epiphany a few days ago that this is a language that I actually want to put a lot of effort to learn. I find Chinese, or is it Mandarin, I just find it so intriguing. And also we're getting to a point where China is becoming a global superpower, and of course this is going to be one of the languages that is key in business. Today I learned about time, reading time periods, 早上, 早上, 晚上, 晚上. I actually do not even want to remember right now, because I think I've overloaded my brain. But yeah, it's really, really exciting to get back to it. I'm also thinking about learning Spanish, and I've also had this epiphany from rewatching Money Heist, and I just love the language. And I'm finding myself being able to speak Spanish even though I've never really taken a class in Spanish. Yo puedo hablar español. Me llama Yep. Soy de Kenia. I think one of the reasons why I want to learn Spanish is because when they cuss, their cusses are just, you can feel it. You can feel it from the depths of your heart, de mi corazón. But I don't know which accent I would like to learn. Should I learn Spanish with a Spanish accent or with a Mexican one? The little that I've been able to pick up is thanks to es la culpa de telenovelas mexicanos o mexicanas, de canciones, de películas, serie. I used to be so obsessed with Mexican telenovelas. Oh my goodness. I feel like learning this language just for fun, just because I want to. Previously, I've tried learning German. I stopped. Ich brauche Deutsch. Ich brauche nicht Deutsch. I don't know where to put the nicht. I learned it a few times. I mean, if I'm able to travel there, I would be able to ask for directions. I would be able to probably order at a restaurant. Ich möchte eine Pizza essen. Ich bin nicht in der Nähe. I can say one sentence or two and that's it. But apart from that, I realized that I'm not going to use the language. I don't want to go to Germany to live there. I've been to Berlin before. I'll probably go back sometime. I know in Austria they also speak German. But yeah, it's not a language that's going to help me in the long term because I'm not planning on living in a German speaking country. It's actually getting quite dark. Have yourself a wonderful evening or wonderful day, a week.